All right, looks like everyone is here. So again, welcome to the Emerging Contaminants webinar. My name is Brian Woodham. I'm a project manager here at GEFA. I will be the moderator, and I'm excited to welcome everyone to this webinar that we will be putting on. First, I'm going to start with some housekeeping items, and then we'll get started with the webinar itself. So uh, first, we're going to talk about the question and answer box. I'm sure all of you will have questions. We encourage them all. If you look at the bottom of your screen, there's a button that should say Q&A. If you don't see that button, then please click the More button, and then you will see Q&A. So we will use that box for all of our questions. Please, at any time during the program, put your questions in this box. We'll be able to see them, and then we'll answer all the questions at the end. So again, put your questions in the box. We look forward to seeing those, and then we'll answer them all towards the end. We also have people here from EPD that will be able to answer your questions as along with the team from GEFA. And then also there will be a chat box. The chat box will be used to share information with you as the program goes along. So that's all for our housekeeping. Again, I want to welcome everyone. And now I'll turn it over to Jamel as she gets started on our Emerging Contaminants webinar.
Thank you. Hello and welcome everyone for joining. Thank you so much for joining today. My name is Jamel Cherry, and I am truly excited that you were able to make time for this webinar. As mentioned, today's topic is the Emerging Contaminants Program administered here at GEFA, the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority. Our goal for today's webinar is simple. We want to get the word out about funding available to address PFAS and other emerging contaminants. During today's session, you're going to learn about GEFA, again, the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority, who we are, and the people we serve, as well as the programs we provide. Now, for anyone that is new and has never heard of GEFA and you're on today, I want to give a special thank you and welcome to you. We encourage that you check us out online and see our previously recorded webinars. As well, I encourage you to just send me a message in the chat to introduce yourself, and maybe we can catch up afterwards. Next, we'll explain the Emerging Contaminants Program and its federal requirements and program eligibilities. Following the program information, we're going to demonstrate when and how to apply for eligible emerging contaminants projects. As Brian mentioned, we have our Q&A box section open. We want you to place questions in throughout the presentation, and then we're going to come back in a separate section to answer those. But before we dive in, I want to give a warm and hearty welcome to our great partners over at Georgia Environmental Protection Division, EPD. They are here on the line with us as well for the webinar. They're helping us reduce PFAS. And it's true, strong partnerships are what makes this type of work possible. So let me introduce our webinar panel. So you have myself, I will be presenting. I am a project manager here in the drinking water program for GEFA. We have our co-presenter, Winton Cooper. He's a project manager in the clean water program with GEFA. We also have Deisha Tanker. She's an environmental engineer. She works in the drinking water permitting and engineering program for EPD. And we have August Luttenhouse. He's a environmental engineer with the municipal permitting unit for EPD. Welcome. Their mics will be able to be unmuted at any time, and their cameras will come back on once we do the Q&A section. So without further ado, let's get started.
Well, thanks, Jamel. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Winton Cooper, and as Jamel mentioned, I'm a project manager here at GEFA, and we're really happy you have all joined us here this morning. We're really excited to share that this year marks GEFA's 40th anniversary of conserving and protecting Georgia's energy, land, and water resources. Over that time, we've provided more than $6 billion in low-interest loans and grants, which have supported over 2,000 projects statewide. As some of you may already know, at GEFA, we serve a wide range of eligible borrowers, including counties and municipalities, local water and wastewater districts, and state and local authorities created by the General Assembly. We also work with nonprofit organizations for land conservation projects. Looking at our slide here, as you can see on the last bullet of this slide, GEFA can also support projects from the ground up. Eligible project costs include planning, design, engineering, construction, and land acquisition. And while we don't fund operations and maintenance costs specifically, our focus is really on helping communities build strong and sustainable infrastructure that will hopefully continue to serve Georgians for decades to come. So with that, I will turn it back over to Jamel to get us started on the federal funding.
Perfect. So let's think about this. Congress doesn't actually write one single budget to spend all of the funds. Instead, they pass 12 separate appropriation bills each year. In 2021, the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act, that we call IJA, made the cut into law. IJA provides federal funding for public infrastructure improvements nationwide. This also includes the Drinking Water and Clean Water State Revolving Fund Program that's run here at GEFA. Therefore, the Emerging Contaminants Program is federally funded from this appropriation, and there are a few requirements that we wanted to make sure you know up front. Okay, this funding requires BABA, that's the Build America, Buy America, domestic preference requirement. And yes, that means for all permanent iron or steel, manufactured products or construction materials must meet BABA compliance, and unless it's specifically covered by an approved EPA waiver. For more information about BABA, you can see the access to the link in the chat, and we're going to move on to get more information about the Emerging Contaminants Program. You can go to the next slide. Right. So, GEFA has received 4 years of funding allotments from the Emerging Contaminants Program, approximately $12.3 million in clean water projects for, clean water remediation funding, and $79.9 million in drinking water remediation funding. That said, we have dispersed lots of funds, but we do have funds still available for 2024. We have funding in our drinking water program, and we have funding available in our clean water and drinking water program within the 2025 year. The available funds that we have, we're looking for you to help us fulfill the next projects that we assign. We have not had a full announcement for the 2026 funding. We do anticipate that the program will continue for 2026. So we highly encourage anybody that is interested and has a concern about contaminants in their drinking water system, or if they're interested in anything that is project eligible for the clean water, that you apply while the funds are available.
Awesome. Thanks, Jamel. So now that we've discussed the available funding, let's take a dive into both the clean water and drinking water SRF programs. And for your sake, to avoid any confusion, you'll often hear us refer to them simply as ECs or the EC programs. So with that, I'll walk you through what these programs are, how they differ, and how you and your communities can hopefully take advantage of them and that funding that Jamel just went over with us. So first things first, both of these programs offer 100% grant funding to help communities address ECs in our water systems. And yes, that's 100% grant funding. It's not a loan. So all of you can sleep easy knowing that there's no interest or repayment schedule coming down the road, waiting in the dark of the night for us. The Clean Water EC program really focuses on wastewater and stormwater systems, working to prevent contaminants from entering or getting into our rivers, lakes, groundwater. A key requirement we'd like to mention here is that the contaminant must be identified before applying. That way, we all know up front if the project is eligible. Moving on quickly to the Drinking Water EC program. This program is all about public drinking water systems, making sure contaminants are removed before they reach end users and customers like me and you. One important thing to note here, you see on the slide, is that at least 25% of the funds from this program are reserved for small or disadvantaged communities. And just to clarify really quickly, for the sake of this specific drinking water EC program, a small system is defined as a community of 20,000 people or fewer, and a disadvantaged community is determined using GEFA's affordability criteria, which you can easily find on our Call for Projects page. And with that, we'll get a general overview on our EC program.
Well said, Winton. Now let's all take a quick pause and let's review this image. Outside of the fact that I am so glad I don't live wherever this town is depicting, it is extremely easy to see how many sources of PFAS can be present in any environment and how collectively they can contaminate our ecosystem where you and I and our families reside. It's not exclusive to just the textile manufacturing industries or firefighting foam. PFAS has many ways that it can be released into our environment. And GEFA is working hard right now to bring fundings directly to those communities that to mitigate dangerous impacts of these contaminants in our pollution, in their pollution. So I want you to go ahead and get ready to write down your questions as we learn about what is and is not eligible with this funding.
Awesome. So, as we mentioned earlier, the Clean Water Emerging Contaminants Program offers grant funding to help address that big umbrella of emerging contaminants in our wastewater, in our stormwater, and non-point source pollution rather. So as you can see listed, some of the eligible contaminants we can fund include PFAS or per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, pharmaceuticals and personal care products, often abbreviated to PPCPs. We've got microplastics, antimicrobial resistant bacteria. You'll see there 6-PPD quinone and harmful algal blooms, which are often called HABs for short. Moving on quickly to our drinking water eligible contaminants. You'll see that these include contaminants listed on the EPA's contaminant candidate list, and that includes CCL1 through CCL5, as well as any future list that the EPA publishes. Right now, CCL6 has not been finalized by EPA just as yet, but as soon as it is, those contaminants will also qualify. If we look at this slide a bit more closely, for example, manganese you see listed in the middle column is on CCL5, and it can end up in our drinking water from natural sources like erosion of rocks or from activities like mining or wastewater discharges. And just to quickly note here, all PFAS compounds are eligible for funding, even if the EPA has already set regulations or a maximum contaminant level for them. Because, as I'm sure many of you are aware, they still pose an ongoing health and environmental concern, especially here in the state of Georgia. So now we'll talk about eligibilities. So as this slide shows, if you're at a water utility or in a community thinking about a project that fits one of those 12 clean water SRF eligibilities, and your project addresses an identified emerging contaminant, you can definitely be eligible for funding. We just want you to keep in mind that the funding needs to be tied to a capital work or planning that's clearly going to lead to construction. Some of the most common projects we see here at GEFA are wastewater treatment plant upgrades, for example. We're talking about pilot studies or projects adding new technology to remove PFAS or other contaminants. Right now, GEFA is currently funding a few pilot studies in Northwest Georgia to help communities tackle PFAS issues. So if your community is considering upgrades, let's get that application started ASAP. Um, to talk a bit about what, these eligibilities can look like in practice, I want to share a quick example from Tucson, Arizona. The city of Tucson in Arizona delivers about 13 to 18 million gallons of reclaimed water a day for irrigation and non-potable uses. Their monitoring found PFAS and 1,4-dioxane above targets. So what they did is that they identified appropriate treatments. In their case, it was UV advanced oxidation and granulated activated carbon. And they are using the Clean Water Emerging Contaminants program from the state of Arizona to help support both design and construction. And so far, from what we've seen, that program has been successful. So that's a great example of how a reuse project can qualify when you have confirmed contaminants and a defined treatment method. Returning to our slide really quickly, we're also seeing a lot of interest in biosolids treatment and disposal. With PFAS showing up in biosolids, a lot of utilities around the state are really looking for new treatment technologies or safer rather, disposal methods to keep those contaminants out of our landfills or away from agricultural land. So if this is something that you're working on here locally, I definitely encourage you to submit that application. Um, as you can see on the slide, if you're at a stormwater utility or involved in a stormwater management program in any way, we also highly encourage you to submit that stormwater project, especially if you've got that one that's sitting on a shelf catching dust, just ready to be unleashed. We really want you to come and submit that pre-application for that project. We're specifically talking about projects that trap, filter, or remove contaminants from runoff, like microplastics or some other pollutants. So if that sounds familiar, there's funding to help you tackle that issue as well. Non-point source projects can qualify too. Think about things like landfill leachate collection or surface water protection projects. If your community is dealing with contamination from old landfills or other sources, we can help you as well. And finally, I'll touch on our decentralized systems like septic to sewer connections or advanced on-site treatment systems. Those projects are also eligible for clean water EC funding. So as you can see, there's a lot of potential here for your communities. So if you have any questions or need any additional info on how that project might fit into the clean water program, feel free to reach out to us at any time. All right, so let's turn our attention to those drinking water eligibilities. If you're planning a project that deals with a drinking water contaminant, as we just went over, there's a good chance you can get funding for it through GEFA. One big thing to note here right from the start is that if the EPA already has a drinking water standard for a contaminant, you generally can't use these grants to address it, and that's really important. The exception to that rule is for PFAS, because since PFAS continue to be a major concern, as we've mentioned a couple times already, all compounds are eligible, even if they already have limits imposed and in place. So any PFAS project, especially for drinking water, will be prioritized for funding. Some of the most common types of projects that qualify for funding are drinking water treatment upgrades, like improving existing systems or adding new technology to tackle those ECs. Transmission and distribution, for example, those projects also qualify, especially if you're looking to replace some old pipes or fix a few leaks to reduce some water loss and improve your system's overall performance. Um, Another area we've seen interest is in the development of new water sources, like drilling new wells or adding new intakes to ensure that your community's water is clean, safe, and reliable. People don't always realize, but if you see four bullets down, storage projects also qualify. This can mean building new storage tanks or upgrading existing ones to make sure that you can meet the demand and improve your local distribution system. And, if your community, your city, your county is working on consolidating some smaller systems into larger, more effective ones, there's funding to help that effort as well. So just like the Clean Water Program, we'll note here that planning and design work is also eligible. Um, and to wrap that all up neatly for you, so if you're testing new technologies, if you're exploring new ways to manage your drinking water, be sure to connect and get that application going today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, we've just gone through where the program funding comes from. You all know that it's a federally funded program, and there are a lot of details that went and provided to explain what you can do with the funding. We currently have funding available, and so now we want to make sure you know how to apply. As those wheels start to turning and you have some proposals that you'd like to put in for your community or public water system, we have our GEFA page, which is um, located here on this slide. You can go to georgia.g or gefa.georgia.ga, and within there, you'll see where it says water programs. When you click on water programs, you'll see on the side, there'll be a choice for call for projects. Click on the next slide, you'll see the highlighted in red, there's the link there to get to the call for projects homepage. We're making this highlight specifically because we often do call for projects, and sometimes there's more than one. So if you're going on the website right now, there should only be one, and it's going to be tabled just like you see it here. And again, that's gefa.georgia.gov/call-for-projects if you want to just type it directly in your URL. The project period has already opened. We are accepting pre-applications right now. The deadline is February 27th of 2026. You got till midnight that day. Applying does not guarantee you funding, and applying does not require you accept funding. We want to make sure that we reach those communities that have a true concern about PFAS or a known detect, and they're looking to get assistance with remediation while funding is available. Let's go to the next slide, and I'm going to give you some insight on the application process. So right here, you're going to see, once you click onto the home page, that link from our website is going to take you to this home page. The home page, again, we could have more than one call for project listed, but we only want you to click on emerging contaminants. When you click on the emerging contaminants green button, it will take you into the regular application, but please note what it says in red. I'm sure it's too small for you to read, so I'm going to tell you what it says. This pre-application is savable. Okay? There are concerns that people put information in and they need to either involve other people or they need to stop and start. Maybe they can't do the full application all at once. Maybe they come across a question and they say, hold up, I need to get that document to include. I might need a few minutes to do so. What we're going to show you next will help you make sure that you're able to continuously save and access that file. All right. Hope this is the updated slide. Great. So in the pre-application, there's going to be a section that says primary contact, and it's going to have an email address that you put in for primary contact. If you are not the person that's going to be officially submitting this document, you're doing it on behalf of a city. When you first open up the application to get started, enter in your email address, the person who clicked on it, not the person who's going to submit it. When you enter in your email address and you hit save, it's going to send you an email that looks like this one. The email will give you an external link, which is in blue in the bottom of the square, as you see. That link can be shared with anyone who you want to have access to the application while it's open. So if an engineer and a community, or community and the admin, or the community and a lawyer, or whomever else, if anyone needs to access that, you take that email that you have and you just forward it to that next party. Go back into the link and then update the email address for primary contact back to whomever is the official primary contact for this application. This again will allow you to continuously go in until you're ready to finally submit. I hope that's helpful to anybody who may have experienced a problem in the past. The pre-application looks similar to this, and there's going to be links that you're going to need to upload. Most of those, files that you'll need to upload. Most of those files will not be a required section. However, we do want as much information that you can provide on this proposed project upfront. So if you have a PER, if you have known defects, if you have a letter of violation, if you have any other item that is credible that best demonstrates your concern or best demonstrate your proposal of your project, definitely include that. So the next slide should be a quick little video that's going to kind of detail out what the application will ask for. So it's going to ask for things like things about your community. It's going to ask about your engineer. If you have not yet confirmed and solidified a engineer through procurement, you can put TBA for a community that has known problems, and then they can come back and we can update that information. Because I'm sure that one is a required field. So if you don't have one just yet, that's okay. Do not panic. And please don't not apply because you feel like I don't have an engineer. Maybe I can't apply. You most certainly can. We just need to update that information at that later time. You'll see there, we'll ask about the project. There'll be a few questions that you can put in additional text, as well as we want to know who all is supporting this project. Is this going to be co-funded for something that's already under works? Or is this something that is just strictly being requested from this program alone? Or if you have a current loan and you're wanting to tie this in with a loan and bridge those fundings to co-fund together, please just mention that in the section that demonstrates the cost breakdown. of who's paying for it or what funding is going to be assigned to it. And of course, any details you can provide of how you come up with your cost breakdown. I think there should be a file attachment option for that so you can upload that information. Once you get all the way through all four sections, that last page, we're going to go to the next slide. That last page is going to have that little button that I spoke about. I've gotten calls that say, I keep hitting the button and it doesn't look like it's going through. Did you get my application? And most likely I didn't because they didn't check this one box. Once you hit that box that says you're ready to submit, click that button and then hit close and save and it will then send you an application number to let you know what applicant number you were. And it will no longer allow that external link to access for updating purposes the application. You'll be able to view it, but you will no longer be able to update the application. Uh, all right. So that's it. I mean, this has been a very informational based webinar. And in our information, we discuss the overview of the projects, of the program, excuse me. The program requirements include the state environmental program, Davis-Bacon, DBE, and yes, BABA. The program highlights, we discuss the clean water eligibilities, the drinking water eligibilities. Everyone knows that the EPA has defined small as systems for 25% thousand or less. And if you're interested in an engineering only for the clean water program, you cannot do so with these funds. There are no clean water projects that are engineering only. You would have to have engineering that is going to complete construction in order to apply. The time frame is now. So let's go ahead and get these applications in. The deadline is February 27th. And when we receive these applications, we are prioritizing the applicants that are submitted based on their affordability scores, based on PFAS known detects, as well as the type of project eligibility and funding eligibility. If we have, as long as we have funding we want to get as many projects funded as possible. But again, it's going to be ranked between the known defects that you have, as well as the criteria that is listed on our website. Now that we have completed all of the information about the program, we are going to start to tackle some of those questions. Do we have questions in the chat?
Yes, we do have questions in the chat.
Awesome.
The
All
first
right.
question we will
And we
start
made
with,
sure EPD is available too in case we have any environmental questions.
yes. All right. The first question is, will the presentation slides be available / shared after the workshop?
They can be. We can most certainly do so.
All right. The next question is, due to the Channel 2 expose on remediation of homeowners' land used for agriculture, which they estimated for 32 acres was $24 million. We're afraid this exposure regarding remediation will have a negative effect on our liquid application sooner than later. How quickly can the grant process approval be accomplished?
Okay. So the turnaround from application submission to execution of a grant. I want to be realistic because it's fair. It's a fair question. Currently, for funds that are available right now, once we have vetted them out and we submit them over to EPA for official approval to add them to our intended use um, uh, program, we would want to say maybe about 6 months or so at worst case scenario. And that's just because there are other people at play, and we want to make sure our federal government is active and open throughout that time period. So if you, for the funds that we currently have available right now, which are the remaining funds in 2024 and all of the funds for 2025, those funds GFA currently has access to, but we still have to propose these projects to EPA. So there will not be an immediate turnaround to access those funds. So anything construction related, we ask that you not start or break ground or start any construction portion until your project has been approved in order for you to be reimbursed for any of those efforts. However, as far as engineering costs, if your city is already underworks for getting a plan together, we, continue to do those type of things. That is an eligible item that can be funded even up until the time that we get started on construction. So there's no problem with you doing engineering in advance, but you cannot do any work until we have gotten the green light from EPA. So I will definitely stick with about 6 months or so at worst case scenario. Could be much sooner.
All right. Thank you, Jamel. Is there a link to a list of what projects have already been funded by GEFA for 2024 and 2025 for the drinking water and clean water EC? Where,
We are, um, Quentin, you
where
want to
there are
answer that?
still, where there are still funds available.
Okay, say that one more time. You want to know the list of what's already been, like projects in general. So the projects that we have funded thus far, we're about to post an updated press release that will announce all of the projects funded thus far with emerging contaminants funding. And that will include some of our grants from our small and disadvantaged, in addition to these funds that are coming from IJA. So if you are able to go on our website in a couple of days. Once we have everything updated, we will definitely share that information in case you want to get an idea of some projects that have already been funded or some communities that have already received funding.
Okay, next question is this application going to be for remaining 2024 funding slash remaining 2025 funding or potential 2026 funding?
All,
All of the above. Yep.
all of the above.
Also, if you direct your attention to the chat, the last thing that was posted are the intended use plans for the 2022, 2023, and 24 funding for emerging contaminants.
Mhm.
That should also be useful.
Yeah.
Next question is, does drinking water allow engineering only projects?
Winton?
Yes, it does. So you can have a project that's for planning and designing or testing in the drinking water program. So yes, it does.
All right. And does EC funding cover HAA 5 violations?
So to the best of my knowledge, and we can double check for you, HAA 5, I believe, does have a maximum contaminant level in place by the EPA. So no, it wouldn't qualify for this specific drinking water funding.
For the person who asked about HHA5, if you don't mind, send me an email after this session. I'd like to discuss or get more information outside of this EC program. I appreciate it.
Might be an alternative opportunity to get
Yeah,
easy
we
funding.
can we can just discuss some things.
Just to reiterate, the slides will be available after this. And then our next question Is the 25,000 for small communities 25,000 customers or 25,000 service connections?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And to clarify, so the 25,000 is for people served. So the language from EPA for the drinking water program is a system that serves 25,000 or fewer.
Right. And where can we access a list of qualifying contaminants?
So specifically for the drinking water, you can easily find them by searching on EPA's website for the contaminant candidate lists. CCL 1 through 5 and 6 is also posted in a draft form rather. As far as the clean water eligible contaminants, EPA has listed um, a short list of eligible contaminants, but it really captures all of the emerging contaminants. You should also be able to easily find a clean water fact sheet, which I can actually add to the chat here if you give me a second. So hopefully that answers where you can access those qualifying contaminants.
Um, Brian,
Yes.
the question that you had about the HA5, can we have Disha? Can you give us some information regulatory wise about that pollutant or that contaminant?
Sure. So it's a disinfection byproduct, and like Winton mentioned, it would not be eligible because it has a maximum contaminant level, so it would not be eligible. But if there are other funding available, they can certainly reach out to GEFA and discuss the other options.
Thank you. Great. Appreciate that.
Next question is, I may have missed this. I apologize. Are there any funding caps for each project?
Okay. We did not disclose a funding cap. We're still using the same guidelines that we have for our loans as far as it's a mirror image as far as our policy that we're using for our current program for EC. The I mean, we haven't really run across any major issues where something like that could be circumvented, but at this time, the funding caps that we have on our loan agreements is the same that we have on our drinking water and clean water grants. You want that number? Should I provide that number?
Yes, if you could put it
Okay.
in the chat,
Um,
chance. Um,
we can drop the policy, the link to the policy in the chat.
and also, if you notice in the chat, everyone, the clean water emerging contaminants fact sheet is in the chat, which should help with all the contaminants. Thank you, Winton. Next question is, my understanding is that the eligibility is based on project types, not the applicant entities. For example, can I apply for this funding if I'm a professor from a Georgia university?
Winton?
Y'all want me to chime in here?
Yeah, go ahead, Judy.
Hey, y'all. I'm Judy. Um, so it's a really interesting question, and we have had this asked as part of our Helene Resilience Funding program, which is a specialty funding program that we have here at GEFA as well. And if you're a professor at a university, what I'd recommend is partnering with a local water system. And so the funds could flow through them to you, if they're willing to do a research project. I think that is something that we could fund, but I'd recommend partnering with a local community to do that research, if that makes sense. And we're happy to speak offline about the details if you have a proposed project. Turn it back over to Brian.
Yes, thank you, Judy. All right. So the next question is there a recommended, oh, first I want to bring attention to the chat, where the loan program policies, have also been posted to answer the question about the limits, the funding limits. So the next question is there a recommended source for PFAS treatment technology providers to connect with communities that have a need and are eligible for GEFA funding?
Say that one
Jamel?
more time.
Yeah.
So the question is regarding a recommended source for PFAS treatment technology providers to connect with a community, that have a need and are eligible for GEFA's fundings.
Well, I mean, everything has to be um, procured, but as far as recommended source, we actually don't make a recommendation. Um, we can, EPA can highlight some of the known technologies that are eligible or approved, but as far as making a specific recommendation, is that what the question said?
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
unfortunately, we don't have the ability to make a specific recommendation for a vendor. Um, you would have to I would suggest you come with an engineer, or if your public utility has an engineer, maybe you all can come to the table with some ideas and procure out if you know a technology that will work for your water system. But GEFA is not able to make vendor recommendations. I apologize.
And beyond that, for general resources, do our colleagues from EPD have anything to add to that?
So like Jamal said, we don't provide recommendations, but we do have like I think EPA's website also has some information on that, and EPD also has a PFAS information page. We kind of do the review for particular technologies that are proposed for testing, and if it is being used and it's being installed somewhere for surface water treatment for public water systems, then we will consider those technologies and we will go ahead and do the review for those. But and then there are some compliance and monitoring related information also available on EPD's website. We have our drinking water compliance team that deals with that. Is if there is any specific question related to any technology, we can, but the most common that we have been seeing is GAC and ion exchange. We're also seeing reverse osmosis and ultra oxidation process and etc. This is the most common technologies that we have seen so far for all the projects. I hope this answers your question.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I guess we misunderstood the question. The person asking the question is a provider for PFAS treatment technology, and they were looking for a source to connect with eligible communities.
I think the only thing I would add is, opportunities to connect with organizations like GAWP or GRWA. They may have, the ability to kind of connect you with folks at conferences, where vendors and folks working at utilities can connect and, discuss what the options are.
Thank you, August. All right. And next question is, how will you be notified if you have been approved? Is there a timeline for the approvals?
Um, the timeline for the approvals, I would say um, it would be in March. It would be in March that you would be notified. We're trying not to go beyond March, but the time frame of what I have listed is in March to get the communications to the community that the project is in whatever phase. It's either been reviewed and we have questions, or we need to do an interview to confirm some of the details and components to the proposed project. But within the month of March, we should touch base with as many communities that are on the list via email or by reaching out to move forward with next steps.
All right. And that concludes the questions that we've had for today.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. I'm really grateful that everyone was able to make this session. Winton, we're going to go into the next slide.
Yeah, so to wrap up again, thank you all for your great questions. Once again, the pre-application deadline is February 27th. So be sure not to wait until the last minute and get those pre-applications in as soon as possible to make sure that they're accurate and in on time. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to Jamel and myself at ecfunding@gefa.ga.gov. You can ask us anything. You can send us many emails as you want. We're here to help you as much as possible. And finally, on behalf of the panelists, myself, and our team here at GEFA, we want to thank you all so much for taking the time to spend with us and hear us talk about this wonderful program this morning. And we're really excited to get your next project going.